In a beautiful green pasture, there was a little elf named Petey. And he looked around one day and said, "Oh, look at that wheat crop. I can do something with it." And he thought and he thought. He got the wheat and he rubbed it together and he was made it into flour. He thought, "Now what can I do with this flour?" So he called one of his friends, "Joey, come help me. I've got flour. We can make something. What do you think we should make?" And Joey came and they looked around and they needed more help. So they said, "Josh, come on." So we had three guys and some wheat and flour. And I thought, well, we could make it into a dough ball. And then they started to throw the dough ball back and forth. And it was really fun. And Joey threw.
Hilla.
And Joey threw the ball of dough high up into the air. And just then, Tealson, the great raven, flew by and caught the dough ball in his great raven claws. And he flew over their head thrice, saying, "Caw, caw, caw! I here declare a jump ball." And so the elves all lined up in the field, threshing the wheat as they walked. And the crow raven sat in the air, fluttering like a great whirly birdie, and dropped the dough ball flat.
Peter.
And the ball was caught by whatever his name was.
Peter.
The ball was caught by Peter, and he ran with it, and some of the other and a crowd had gathered, and some of the elves in the crowd cheered, and some of them chased him, and some of the others that were there before chased him, and pretty soon he was about to be caught, so he threw it to one of his friends, and that guy caught it, but he wasn't quite sure what am I supposed to do with this anyway? And then he was tackled by about 20 elves. And as a great pile of elves formed on top of the hapless Darian. And
Hildi.
As the elves all untangled themselves gradually and spread out from that mass, they looked around and they looked around to see where the ball of dough had gone, but it was now a flattened out dough. And they looked down and they looked at all the little smashed elf shapes in the dough and they said, "Wow, this looks like if we baked it, it would be beautifully decorated. And I'm hungry after all that playing." So they said, "What are we going to use to cut it though? It's so big." So they got a wagon and they ran the wagon wheels over it to slice it up into slices like a pizza. And then they decided to put some toppings on, and then they shoveled the slices onto some big cups.
Kateryn.
So they had this wonderful dough-like food, and they were going to celebrate. It was a new dish that they had made. And so they decreed they would have a feast. And they set out the table, and they set out these elf dough pizza thingies out on the table. And they sat down about to eat when that raven saw what they were doing and came back. And the raven was not happy that they had had a feast and had not invited him. So he flew down, intent on revenge. And he grabbed up as much of the food as he could, and he flew away. And Petey said, "This shall not stand." And so Petey went.
Hilla.
And so Petey got the great elf army, and they marched with their little knives, and they walked into the forest, stompity stomp, 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 stompity stomp, stomp, stomp. And they found the raven, and the raven was in its nest, and they built a great fire and burnt the raven and all the dough. And that is how they made cookies for the first time.
Caroline.
They called the cookie dough Keebler because it was it came down. But the raven had been burnt to death, and they knew they wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. So they decided to have a little dance. The little elves got together, and they started to sing and dance and have the best time. And they were giving out the Keebler cookies to other little animals and friends in the forest, and they were celebrating and thought, this is the best day. We played a game, we got rid of the raven, we found this wonderful Keebler cookies, and we just...
Hildi.
This is so much fun that we should do it every year. And we'll call it the Super Bowl. Because they had so much fun throwing the ball of dough around and then having the tradition of pizza afterwards, that was how the Elf Super Bowl came to be, except they don't have it in February. They have it on Christmas Day so that they can also eat Keebler cookies at the same time.
Peter, do you have anything to wrap that up?
And they all lived happily ever after.
Amen. Kateryn, do you have a moral of this wonderful elf magic story?
The moral of the story is if you are going to murder a raven, make sure the raven doesn't have children left behind that are already plotting their revenge.
Do you know, I work at a bakery, and the thing that went through my head is, this is so unhygienic. This is why we never see elves anymore, because they ate this and all died.